You're listening to the Middlemen Podcast with me, Tom Lemongello, and my co-host, Todd Zawicki. Our careers have put us in the middle between retail, media, and brands. But retail media is a closed loop, so we're here to open up the channel and let you listen in. Join our discussions with people who make retail media happen. Welcome to the Middlemen. This is going to be our first of 3 interviews that we have from Groceryshop 2025. This one was a lot of fun for me with Brian Monahan of Albertsons. He's the new head of retail media there. And just for the audience, I used to work with Albertsons very closely when I was at Quotient. And I think people don't realize that it may be called a power regional. It's really a national brand of companies. It may be Vons in Los Angeles. It might be Jewel Osco in Chicago, Stamac in Boston. You've got Acme here in Philly. So people really think of it as their local brand. And a lot of times they don't realize how big it really is.
One thing I think that's meaningful, and we started talking about with Sarah Manzano about the scale of Albertsons and the amount of people it reaches, right? Its stores cover 180 million, which is 60% of the US population. I think they have 80 million people in their loyalty program. And when we think about the 15% of retail media that is not Amazon and Walmart, that 15% is going to grow like gangbusters, because you look at the scale of some of these businesses like Albertsons. It's just, I think we undersell how much more retail media can grow because of the scale of some of these entities. Brian talks about how, even though retail media has existed at Albertsons for many years now, as he steps into the role of running Albertsons, the work that still needs to happen in terms of consolidating those 23 operating divisions under a holistic retail media platform. And Brian is clearly looking to embark on, how do I consolidate the operations and help use that to scale the business in a really meaningful way. And I think Brian really brings some good energy and perspective. And I think one of the most important aspects about Brian, he's been at a number of agencies and a senior exec at these agencies. And he'll talk about how he started as a media planner. So I think as we think about how do we scale that 15% and grow that business, and one of the things you and I've talked about before is, how do we bring agencies into the mix? How we get them to be buyers? And I think Brian's got some interesting thinking, and we have some interesting discussion around what is it going to take for retail media to work with agencies, and how do we bring them in, and how do we scale? And this isn't about stealing share, like stealing business from Amazon and Walmart. It's about growing the pie so that 15%, Amazon and Walmart might grow 5% a year as a retail media business, but then these other retailers will be able to grow 15, 30, 50% year over year. And that's really going to grow that end of the market. So I think that's where there's such upside as you look at some of the scale of some retailers still to really embrace and now grow and scale retail media. It's going to be fascinating to watch. And what's interesting is, really, Brian and I crossed paths 10, 15 years ago when he ran the Microsoft business at Universal McCann. And so it's fun to have someone in my background, not just the Quotient. He's a non-Quotient Mafia member of your retail media. I think that's really one of the interesting things, is we have a non-Quotient alumni running Albertsons retail media business now.
Yeah, let's be clear. Brian may have the best resume in retail media right now, because he came from the Walmart business, and then he ran Dentsu Merkle and their retail media capabilities. And to your point, he's not from the Triad Mafia, he's not from the dunnhumby Mafia, and he's not from the Quotient Mafia. So all of that is to say that a new perspective is welcome here. And let's be fair, Albertsons has had retail media since really like 2017. And what has been, I think, a challenge for them is that they are bigger than some of the power regionals, smaller than Amazon and Walmart. But to your point, they really do have the scale to be a player and grow. And so I would think that's a reason why Brian would want to go in and take the helm here, is because it is a really great asset as a grocer. Sarah Marzano explained the in-store opportunity of 2,300 store versus 600 for Amazon. There's a lot of great stuff here, but it's going to take moving it to the next level and being easier to buy. And there's a deep bench at Albertsons with Liz Roche on the measurement side. Lots of other players here who are looking to show their self-service capabilities, their digital out-of-home capabilities, all the things that they talked about at Groceryshop. can bring to bear on this sort of holistic solution. So for me, this was a great coming home episode of the Middlemen. Get to talk about a business I used to work on, and it was great to hear Brian's vision for the future.
Brian's really a thoughtful and engaging person, and to your point, I think Albertsons did a great job hiring someone like him and bringing a little different perspective to the space. And I really enjoyed talking to him. He is an extremely articulate and thoughtful person, and it'll be fun to watch what he does with Albertsons. And it's good to bring some of that point of view and energy and ideas to retail media with a platform like Albertsons to help us continue to grow this as a sector. And so it'll be fun to watch what he does with it, for sure.
Great. Well, let's get to the discussion. So we're here on the Middlemen Podcast with Brian Monahan from Albertsons. This is kind of like a homecoming for me because when I was at Quotient, we worked with Albertsons. That was our first retailer. Our CEO came from Safeway, and so I learned a lot. There were a lot of false starts. There were a lot of things that didn't work.
Because you worked in the Albertsons business yourself, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I was a product guy, so I was across everything. But I remember working with Albertsons, when we started to launch sponsored products, and it was like, let's do affinity baskets and see, if somebody buys chips, let's show them salsa. And it was a lot of fun back then. It was kind of like, this is a total greenfield thing. And then since then, things have moved more and more professional. They brought in somebody from dunnhumby, Christy Argelin, to sort of, relaunch the business. But now they're bringing in people from the media world, somebody from Merkle, Dentsu, somebody who actually knows what the agencies are thinking. So we wanted to talk to you.
Well, welcome home, soldier.
Thank you.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
No, we'd love to hear your journey to understand, to Tom's point, Brian, in that, I think what's fascinating if you look at the retail media landscape are the changes and the people who are being brought in to run these efforts. Lisa Valentino at Best Buy, coming from ESPN.com, and your background in the agency and other RMNs is, I think, a unique journey. So I think it's good to kind of understand the perspective. It's not the merchandising person running RMNs anymore. It's people from the media world who are now the people who are selling a media business. So it'd be great to hear, your story and how you ended up at Albertsons.
Yeah, well, and thanks for having me, Todd. So, listen, I think retailers are realizing having a media business is not just a nice to have, it's a must have, right? It really forces a transformation of the core business,
yep.
Right? It's not just a retailer with a media business off to the side, it's some sort of hybrid. So trying to bring some of that DNA into these companies that comes from the media world. I mean, I'm a proudly trained media planner. That's how I grew up. I started as a spot television buyer and got into media planning, and then went retail side and was at Walmart when we launched Walmart's retail media network, and then went to Pinterest and saw how media platforms were starting to figure out how to work with retailers' data and partner with retailers. And then for the past few years at Dentsu, I've been leading the retail media practice at Dentsu, so working with retailers and brands around the world, trying to work together.
And this, that's a question that we've often had about media agencies and their role in retail media. It seems to be underdeveloped at this point in time. So it's interesting that was a practice you were building at Dentsu. And what exactly was Dentsu doing when they were working with brands and retailers in those engagements?
Well, I would say Dentsu is doing a lot of different things for different retailers and brands around the world, but agencies' role in retail media is, in many cases, taking orders. Because retail media hasn't really been planned.
Right,
It's
that's
been allocated, right? It's like,
right.
Hey, here's a percent of GMV,
right.
Go forth.
Right.
It hasn't really been planned to any sort of addressable audience. And we have 175 million Americans in Albertsons trading radius,
right.
And we don't set budgets off that yet. Okay. We basically are, working off some allocation,
right.
By and large, but that needs to change, right? Because it's not how humans make decisions. There's a path to purchase. There's a full funnel customer journey.
Right.
They weave in and out of our retail ecosystem alongside others, and we need a planning process that can bring all that to bear. And we're here to capture our unfair share and drive more sales for our suppliers than the other retail customers they work with.
We've talked about one of the things I think that has to happen to take retail media to the next level is the inclusion of agencies as planners. And especially if they want to move, you want to move top of funnel, the brand agencies, the Dentsus of the world control those budgets. And so what are the things that now that you're on the other side, how do you make that easier? How do you include them as planners? Is that a brand side? You have to get their permission to include them as a planner? Because if we can unlock that planning piece of it and really include the agencies as a part of a tripole element to this, like it is in every other media business, that would be a huge unlock. So what's holding that back? Them as planners? Is it, to your point, is it just allocation? We have to move to sell them differently?
A lot of people would say the reason why brand and trade and shopper are different is because, one's got a national remit and one's fundamentally focused on individual retail accounts. I do think there is a media planning shoe to drop, which is how does someone with a national remit take data and performance and surfaces from multiple retailers and thread it into some rationalized allocation. I think the answer is going to be the bet we're making. It's going to be multi-touch attribution, right? And we don't necessarily think it's multi-touch. We think it's more test and control, what have you. But nonetheless, it's showing the aggregate business sales lift that you get when you layer multiple pieces of communication on top of each other. And that'll inform the overall allocation. I think we got to work back into those budget allocation tools to help them make smarter decisions, not just on efficiency, which is what they do now, right? Cheap reach is what they optimize for.
Well, yeah, it was interesting to listen to Liz Roche talk yesterday, talking about how Albertsons launched an API in January and Pepsi is using it seemed like, and there was the idea of having new types of demand models and things like that. So it's interesting for me because probably 2021, 23, whatever, the retailer's positioning was there is no real access to data. This is just sort of like, come and be a part of our walled garden. Having an API means that you're starting to give brands some data. Where is that part of how this changes? Is that the bottom up that you're talking about, or is that something else?
I think it does change. We have to figure out how we integrate into those tools that are looking across the totality of the media landscape.
Right.
At the same time, we're hard at work at making our little hedged garden work as hard as possible. I think we're all headed towards some version of PMax or Advantage Plus, right? We're going to take the signal we sit on top of, all of the touch points that we can control, and try to make really smart decisions on what to show to whom, when, and what drives the sales lift.
But in the short term, you're doing things like buy one, get one for retail media planning. So you're using some retailer tactics to try to stoke the market, right?
Yeah, yes. So, it's retail that doesn't love a BOGO. Yeah. But what I think is cool about that program, Tom, is it's the first time to my knowledge, that you've seen a retailer align its enterprise spend with a RMN advertiser spend at the audience level. Right. So what we've said is this fall that advertisers that buy an impression through the collective, we will match that impression to the same audience with one of our enterprise campaigns, right? Yeah. So like a football tailgating drive to store enterprise campaign with a item based AMC RMN campaign to the same person. Right, so just trying to line up some frequency, right? Because again, that's how humans
kind of prove this whole path model at the same time.
Correct. And listen, we at the Collective are really trying to live up to our name.
Right.
Albertsons Media Collective. We want to drive collective growth for our advertising partners, our merchant colleagues, and our shared end customer. Right. She'll vote with her pocketbook. So we'll know if it works or not. Right. But we need to start bringing more to the table, other than just asking for money and saying, here's an impression. We have other assets we can bring. In this case, it was our enterprise campaign, so we could do the BOGO. And, we're excited to do a lot more of that in the future.
That's an interesting way to unlock that kind of full funnel interest and demand. Historically speaking, I think retail media has been, we're just going to be just like Shopper, this bottom of the funnel, largely conversion-based, digital incentive-based. And I think the promise of retail media has been, we can get brand dollars. That's a real lift. to the margins of retailers and to their business and capture that. And I think what's been missing is it's kind of like the underpants gnomes of, step one and then question mark step two and then 3-step profit, right? And I think that's been a large part of RMNs of like, we can get the brand dollars. That's like step 3, right? But we haven't figured out the steps necessary to pull that off. And I think now that retail media has reached a certain scale, we have to get smarter and better about how we're going to rationalize how we sell. And fundamentally, I'm super excited about retail media as someone who's been in. So I ran into Brian back 10, 15 years ago, and he was at UM running the Microsoft account. And I've been selling ad tech stuff and related things for a long time. And, so Brian's got a huge, deep network in the digital ecosystem. And we've sort of seen this and I think one of the things that we look back on is when digital started, it fundamentally wasn't capturing its fair share of media dollars based on time spent. And we were talking with Sarah Manzano from eMarketer recently, and she brought up kind of the same thing. If you look at in-store traffic and the amount of time spent with retailers, both digital and physical, like the in-store environment, retailers today are the equivalent of what digital was 15 years ago. It is not capturing its fair share of dollars based on time spent. And so I think
and further to that, she basically showed us a slide that said, Amazon's only got 600 stores because of Whole Foods, but you have 2,300. And so if you're running in-store media, you have a comparative advantage to Amazon in that case. So, is that something that you're really a lever that you're pulling on? I know I saw that you had a partnership with 80 stores. Mm-hmm. So
with some news, it's a pilot, yeah.
Yeah, is that a big unlock? Is this a big carrot to the media buyers, or is it a fundamental way for you guys to sort of rethink your trade marketing? Like, how do you look at this?
Well, stores are a media canvas, right? They're a media canvas that arguably needs to be reset for the digital era, right? Like the unlock for digital retail media has been addressability and attribution. Right. Now, you can't do it the same way we do in digital in store, but that's the key, right? It's like, how do you get some approximation of who saw what and what went in the basket? So stores need to be reimagined. Our little digital screen pilot that you referenced, Tom, is a step in that direction, right? We've got some great time-stamped ad serving that happens there.
Right.
We've got in-cart beacons, right?
Oh, you do? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
that sounds wicked cool.
Yeah. We have to run the regulatory allowances around that in-store tracking and whatnot. But there's a lot we can learn, frankly, in the U.S. from outside of the U.S. Other retailers that haven't been able to get fat and happy with the off-site audience extension stuff have gotten much smarter with what they do in store with their signs and screens and whatnot. And so, yes, we've got a lot to do in the U.S. to unlock the power of our store footprint and the time spent in a harvestable.
It's so valuable of an opportunity.
It's so valuable. I've always taken issue with that whole time spent thing because it's like, is it great? They're there. Is it attentive? Is it harvestable time spent? And that's where I think we've got work to do. So, for example, when you place a e-commerce order with Albertsons now, you go up to, we call it drive up and go.
Yep.
So you drive up, you check in, we promise that we're going to have your order out in 5 minutes left. Well, you're sitting there. That's 5 minutes that should be programmed, should be reimagined.
Right. So just in the same way that Uber's doing in the back of the cab.
Uber's in the back of the cab. We've done some stuff. We did a program a little while ago at Albertsons called Flavor Adventure, and it essentially was like a gamified scavenger hunt around the store. So using points from our loyalty program, incentives, nudges, getting people down aisles, that's another way we should be rethinking the media canvas of our store footprint and making that time spent harvestable by an advertiser.
I like the term harvestable. Right? I think that's a good way of imagining it. There's a grooming aspect to it, right? In terms of farming and maintaining a field and growing it. And
it sounds grocery.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's time spent. It's very noisy right now. People are there to shop, and so we got to figure out how we show up in an additive way.
Well, I think we had an episode with an ex-P&G guy who's now the head of Thrasio, and he was basically saying, look, it would be great to have in-store media because the packaging has to do so much work right now. Yeah. And that's the only thing we've got, really. We've got the price tag, we've got the packaging, and then that's it. And there's no way to sort of dazzle or discover those products. So,
I think the bigger thing when we look at all the the things we were just talking about in terms of the landscape of an RMN, digital, offsite, in-store, and more importantly, the addressability of it. Because going back to your background in digital media, I think the challenge with publishing and digital ads historically has been attribution, because of third-party data has been difficult, the lack of registration, like all the if you think about media mix modeling around traditional digital advertising, it was sort of a struggle. And what I love about retail media is it solves that, right? You have a verifiable purchase, verifiable customer records. Like, it's a landscape that exists that I think solves a lot of the challenges of digital media that existed for 20 or 25 years in a really interesting way. And so I find what's great is like people like you coming into the RMN world of, we can now layer on top of this really interesting landscape that exists around profiles, around data, around transactions. And if we can bring a media lens to that, that could be part of the unlock. Like, I think the way you're thinking about it, reimagining the experience of shopping digitally, physically, and thinking of how do I make that into a canvas is really an interesting way of thinking about it and can unlock a lot of this. So I get really excited about, I've been very much a believer that RMNs are the future of media because of what I was just talking about.
Well, it's because of the customer view.
Right.
And I mean, Todd, a lot of your work historically has been like how to use technology to insert a message along a customer journey.
Exactly.
Because like, you know, you can say the funnel is dead and people make decisions in an instant, and that is all true, but there generally is a cognitive process, right? Yeah. Of like how you learn about how you you build some preference, how you get some purchase intent. Like, yes, we have moments of going 0 to 60, not often, right? There's often a lot of this mental availability, physical availability, you got to line it all up. And it's like, how do we start using technology that sits on top of data, right? And learns, it's got to learn, right? It's got to learn like what combination led to the desired outcome, and then how do we get smarter and plan off of that? I don't know how this is all going to solve for the great big vast world of media planning. We want to participate in that. We're happy to share our data, but for the world we control, we're going to try to get really smart about all those surfaces and those audiences that we know intimately.
Well, you're also starting another promotion to bring travel into Albertsons, and so that's an exciting one. Before we even get into it, I mean, I was just thinking, based on what you were saying, the problem with grocery at this point is that the loyalty program probably has one member, but it's for a family, and you know, I have to make sure that the other people in the house, or my wife needs to figure out, do we want to buy these things? If it's a new thing, that's an actual decision versus what we bought every other week. Right. And so maybe in the world of travel, you start to know more things about what these people are doing outside of the store. I mean, is that something that comes through with these sort of non-endemic partnerships?
Yes, for sure. We get to know these households and their needs more. What I think is really interesting about the Albertsons chain that's different from some of the other national retailers is we're more diversified in terms of the number of banners that are customized shops. So 22 different banners. 6 of them have been around for 100 years or more, right? So these banners, these brands have fed families for generations. Yeah. We also have a different real estate footprint, right? We're not in the big box strip mall, right? Yep. We're more urban. So the result of the sort of legacy relationship and the real estate availability means we see a different type of trip.
There's a taxonomy now of 25 different missions, 25 different trip types of why somebody shops us. You know, the grocery shop, the weekly grocery shop, the stock the nightly meal solution, what have you. And so understanding the needs behind that, to understand more of the needs of that household, are going to help us make smarter about recognizing the mission in the moment and like what the messages that might be helpful of why they're there.
Have you translated those missions into targetable or actionable sort of media signals? Because that's really cool. Like, I mean, as a guy who sold to media planners like Brian back in the day, this is this type of stuff that we can geek out on. For the retail people who listen to us, this is how media planners talk. And guys who sell media. Like, to say, oh, can I actually target one of those 25 different missions? That's really cool. And you can start thinking how that could really impact a media plan and how you buy and how you think about moving people from discovery to conversion.
Right. We're working on it. We're working because
Coming soon.
it's fluid, right?
Right.
It's like you're not in the same state perpetually, right? Like
Right.
you're in a different mission at a different point in time. It's not like I know what you bought in the past. I know your demographics. I know what, like those things are static.
It's the run mission versus the weekly shopping mission versus. I totally get it. It's a really cool concept.
Yeah.
And from a media planning standpoint, if you can target that, that's again kind of the cool stuff that's I think happening with RMNs that never existed with traditional.
Yeah,
digital advertising.
It may be up to the machines to solve. Right?
Okay.
It may be. So we've got a self-service product that we've got an MVP, with closed beta with a couple partners. The end game is going to be more like PMax, Advantage Plus, what Tencent has in China, like these optimization machines.
I'm gonna have to ask you later about what Tencent has in China. Yeah, sounds good.
It's just the PMax. It's like the digital buying and optimization. That's all he's referring to.
They were the original.
Right.
Like, we just
Tencent's got a real big AI program that's figuring all this out.
ByteDance, all the super apps in China. That's how they roll, and it works, right? They, when you work with them, they say, give us your brand, tell us your allowable KPI, and we'll take it from there.
And that's like AppLovin's doing too, on the digital download side.
Right.
Very much so, yeah.
You've been at the company now for how long?
2 months.
2 months. So really early. So
You're in the honeymoon phase.
So what do you think? Like, you've been on both sides already, but like, what do you see the challenges that you need to sort of overcome over the next year, I guess, to make sure that you take Albertsons to that next level?
We've got a lot to work with at the collective, right? We've got national scale, right? We've got over 170 million Americans that live in our trading radius. We're the number 1 or number 2 grocer and 13 to 15 largest DMAs. We've got over 100 million addressable IDs. We've got over 500 million trips. Like, so we've got scale. We have to get better at the ease with which our partners can access it, right? So we got to make it easier to do business with us, so we're faster, more reliable, all that sort of good stuff. We have to make it easier to do business with us all up as Albertsons Inc., right? So the way like we work across our divisions and our merchants.
Was it always sort of at the brand level than before versus the Inc. level?
When you say like brand, do you mean banner? Like you mean like Acme versus Jewel Osco versus?
We call them divisions, but yes. Okay. Yeah. So there's the divisional dynamic. There's how you work with merchants. There's how you work with the RMN. So we have to get easier to work with. And then I think the other thing we have to get better at is transparency and a common understanding of what drove categories, what drove category growth. I think we get all wrapped around the axle of like stack and racking, ROAS, right? And well, it turns out we published a white paper on this. There's 11 different variables that go into how you can calculate a ROAS. Your number for the same campaign will swing 30-60% depending on how you set those dials.
Yep.
And I don't think not many people in the industry actually have the time to do the homework to compare one's ROAS to the next. We got to look at incremental ROAS. We've got to get really good at synthetic controls so we can do it cheaper and faster. We got to do new to category, new to brand. Yes, lifetime value. Like we have to get better signals.
So I have a question about new to brand because I get a little wrapped around the axle because I came from this business when it was all very simple one-to-one targeting. So tell me about what does new to brand mean? Does it mean they already shop at Albertsons, just not that brand, or is it? Are you even targeting people who are not even shoppers at Albertsons, or like what does it mean?
Well, we can only see what happens in our footprint.
Yep.
But for our partners, we want to help them drive new brand all up.
And those partners may be working with data outside of your system to make sure that they don't also buy it at Amazon or something like that.
Right, because we know from, they can't just be shifting. The same way I don't necessarily want to prioritize one of our advertisers just taking share of existing traffic we've got. I want them to make the pie bigger.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same dynamic for our advertising partners. Like they just don't want to just shift a sale from Costco to Vaughn's, right? We need to, but
you would take them.
Well, I would take it. I mean, same as they would take like getting shit. So it's a dance, but we'll have to figure out how they can bring their own data to it. We've been willing to share our conversion data into clean rooms, so our partners can do some modeling on top of it, so they can see it themselves. But we'll work with the data that we've got visibility to.
Great. How much of an investment, to your comment about making it easier, is the mandate then that Albertsons is going to have to radically increase its investment in the product development of its platforms to pull off what we were just talking about, right? Make it easier at think level. The amount of, and as an ad tech guy, I could geek out on the data and systems of what you're talking about. Does Albertsons have a lot of that already, or is it now going to be investing in the build out of that, whether in-house or partners, over the next however many months, years, what have you? Because that's a lot of product development. I mean, really cool product development for media geeks like probably you and I, and money. But that's, I mean, it's I think could probably like to be money well spent. Like, I totally get the roadmap, and I think you're right. We have to make it easier to make people to do business with Albertsons. We have to take advantage of our scale. We have to pull all these data signals, these really cool data signals that, again, as a long-term digital media guy, I've been dying to get to for 20 years. So I see it, and so is that the mandate now, to build all that out?
One of the things, Todd, that's been the biggest change for me coming back to retail media 10 years after I ran the RMN at Walmart is the amount of inbound pitches I get from partners, ad tech partners who want to help us make money.
Of course. It's because the publishing world's dying, and it's RMNs is their only hope.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's so overwhelming. And I don't doubt the propositions. It's just we've only got so much time and so many resources to. So, we're gonna own the brain and rent the pipes. Okay. Right? So it's the thing that's really important to us is our relationship with the household that shops, and understanding more dimensions. Yeah. To your point, Tom, about sort of the partnership with Expedia and get some visibility into their travel patterns. We want to understand more about our customers, and then we will work with some smart partners that can fire off different pieces of communication at different times. We don't dilute ourselves. I mean, we've just opened up an engineering team in Bangalore, so we
Are you going to be building an engineering team in Silicon Valley like Walmart did with Walmart Connect?
Yes, and Walmart Labs.
Okay.
And
so we're going to see Albertson Labs then?
We'll see. I mean,
yes.
and
that's at least your idea.
It's interesting how we did it back then with a bunch of acqui-hires, and so I think that model.
It's friends who got acqui-hired into Walmart Connect.
So we're at time, but I think we're going to have to let Brian get back to it because he has a lot of work to do, it seems. So thank you for joining Middlemen.
Happy to be here. It was fun. Thank you.